All right, sent that to her. Well, let's hope she can get in here. Candace, let's go ahead and start with you because, truthfully, without you, there wouldn't be no telecast. There would be no book.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, Candace is the editor. She is the publisher. She is, I think, you're a contributor as well. And
Anne and I together wrote the section intros and the preface for the book, but I didn't write a particular piece for this book.
Okay, so all right, this is a over 500-page book.
This is our, as Anne and I
say,
this is our most ambitious effort to date.
Yes.
Over 50 contributors and over 500 pages.
What made you think you wanted to do this?
Well, Anne and I started Goddess Inc. That's Anne Key. We are co-managing editors. We started Goddess Inc. I believe it was in 2011. We are both academics, and we are both goddess devotees. Anne was the temple priestess at the Temple of Goddess Spirituality dedicated to Sekhmet, which is in Cactus Springs, Nevada, and that's how I met her because I was a devotee of Sekhmet. I retired from teaching at a community college, and she eventually returned to Oregon and then moved to Albuquerque. And we were concerned that a lot of the books that are considered classics, or that I consider classics in the field of women's spirituality or goddess studies, were going out of print. And so we wanted somehow to be sure that some of these books remained available to people. But at the same time, we wanted to encourage new works, new scholarship, and new research in the field of women's spirituality and goddess studies. So we decided that we would start a publishing company. Sometimes they say fools rush in, and I think that's probably pretty accurate with us. But we are having a great time doing it. Now, we had our first book was Heart of the Sun, which was an anthology and exaltation of Sekhmet. That was a labor of love.
I was just going to get. But I think whenever Catherine Ravenwood came here and organized all my books, she organized them out of my office.
And I would hold it up, but we just moved 2 weeks ago, and all my books are still in boxes. If the camera could swing around that way, you would see I'm just surrounded by boxes. So I don't have it to hold up. But that was a labor of love. And then we did publish Anne's memoirs of being the temple priestess. This one I did have because I kept it out. And it's Desert Priestess. And this is a beautiful book. I would say that even if Anne was not my best friend. This is absolutely gorgeous. Patricia Monahan edited an anthology on Bridget for us. It was the very last thing she was working on before she passed away. On a Friday night, she had worked on it until about 11 at night, and she passed away the following Sunday. And then we did Stepping Into Ourselves. Now, and we say in the preface, and we got such a kick out of it. I was joking around, actually, when I wrote this. Then we said, we ought to just go ahead and go with it. And we started with, this work was conceived at the bar in the lobby of the Doubletree Hotel in San Jose, California. Imbibing several glasses of red wine after leading a powerful ritual for Sekhmet at Pantheacon, we asked each other, what should we do next? In unison, we said, how about an anthology on priestesses? Little did we know what that would entail over the next 2 years. We just immediately whipped out our napkins and we started, well, who can contribute? And started making lists of things and just got so carried away with it. And of course, our husbands are sitting there. They have no idea what's going on and what they're going to have to deal with for the next 2 years. So that's how it started. We just thought that the topic itself was something that hadn't, well, it has been explored. There are some other good books out there, but it hadn't been explored recently. And of course, the term priestess is not used very frequently by people outside of nature-based or earth-centered spiritualities. I surprisingly have run into 2 occasions in the past couple of months working with women where they really did not want to use the term priestess. And I was kind of taken aback because it was in context that I would have thought they would have welcomed the term. So in a sense, the term priestess, the title priestess, is a little bit controversial.
Oh, I went through that whole period myself in my 40s, where I didn't want to be anything that was an S. There was a priestess. In fact, there is a term, a preost, P-R-E-O-S-T, that was kind of being batted around at that time. I don't think it ever really caught on, but there were a number of people that were using the term because they didn't want to be less than. And, having burned our brows in the 60s and figured out who we were in the 70s and 80s, by the 90s we were fairly determined that there was no reason we would be in any way less than the higher level, and I think that was part of it. So I'm not surprised. I think it's a phase you have to go through.
Mm-hmm. And it is a bit of a diminutive, if I said that right. Mm-hmm. In the same sense, the word goddess could be considered that, and sometimes is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the term God is all-encompassing. It is both male and female, but whenever most people say it, they mean male.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true.
So one of the reasons I sort of like the Egyptian term, the term netters, is that it is neither male nor female. And if you say it in the way that the ancients said it, which was netcher, you very quickly realize that it is now brought forward to us in the word nature. So,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So, we've got quite a few Egyptophiles on the line here. So So when you were going through all of these writings that were coming into you, I know when we did Invoking the Scribes, Normandy Ellis and I, we started with over 800 pages, and we managed to winnow it down to a little over 300. Were there some pieces that you said, well, we'll save that for another book, or what did you do? How did you go through the process?
We did exactly that. We went through each submission, and we looked for its, how it would fit in this book. Was it an appropriate match for this book? We looked for the works that were academic in nature. We looked for accuracy, but also readability. We didn't want something that was so heavily academic that nobody could plow their way through it. The creative works, we looked for things that fit the book, but also touched your heart. And Anne and I have a fairly good process for doing that. We don't always agree. But we always listen to each other, and sometimes I can talk her into something, sometimes she can talk me out of something, and somehow the process seems to work.
My husband and I have had that process for many years. We've been partners for over 30 years in business and in life, and what we always said is if we agreed all the time, one of us was redundant.
Oh, okay, yes, exactly.
So we were always very suspicious whenever we both agreed on something, because it meant maybe we hadn't looked at it from all sides or given each other's particular idea full credence. So I understand that. Now, when you came to this work, when you decided, did you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a priestess and I want to go create a temple out in the desert?
Oh, no.
think so, but how are you telling us a little bit at it?
Well, you know, like many of us who are goddess devotees, I was raised in a more mainstream religious home, a Christian home, but it just really didn't take for me. And as I grew older, I became more and more distanced from mainstream religion. Um, and it's an odd story because it kind of dovetails with my professional life too. I have a degree in U.S. history, and I taught U.S. history at a community college for over 32 years. I'm retired now. But my master's is in, I have a PhD also, but my master's was in colonial American social and intellectual history. How's that for a title?
Wow.
I know. And with a kind of an emphasis on women's studies. And as a part of that process, I read a lot about the Salem witchcraft episode. And I always kind of thought, gee, that would be kind of fun to do a class on the Salem episode. Well, my mother's death prompted me to finally make the break from mainstream religion, to walk away from it. And at roughly the same time, I decided to develop that class on the Salem episode, but it had to be broader than that because there wasn't enough for a 16-week semester on the undergraduate level. So I thought, well, I'll just do the entire witch craze. So I began, you know, studying and reading, and I found a book titled Never Again the Burning Times by Loretta Orion. And it is really through that book that I encountered modern paganism. And it just made sense to me. It was a path that I didn't have to set aside my logical mind. I looked around for a bit. Okay, I want to be a pagan. How do I do this? I was involved in a metaphysical bookstore for a while, for about 8 months, taking free Wicca classes. They weren't really free. And but we heard at the store, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and they would talk kind of in hushed tones about there's this temple north of town, and it's dedicated to this Egyptian goddess, Sekhmet, and you don't want to go out there because she's a really ferocious goddess, and it's all this female energy without male energy to contain it. So, of course, I had to go out there. I mean, how could you resist that? And so one afternoon, it was a Friday afternoon, I had really nothing on my schedule to do. I got in the car and drove out there. It happened to be February 2nd, which is, we know, is Emerald, which is a time of new beginnings. How symbolic can that be? And I pulled up, and I found some modular buildings, and there were some people moving around, and got out of the car and asked if I could go up and see the temple. And they said, oh, sure, just go on up that way. And a woman with dark hair stepped out on the porch, and she said, come by and see me on your way back. So I went up to the temple, which is a beautiful walk across the desert, and found this very simple yet very elegant temple. And I spent the time, well, I tell people I had a lively chat with a lizard that came out and talked with me. I sat on a rock just outside the south portal, which I know now is called Moon Rock. I went inside and sat by the west portal and looked at the statue of Sekhmet. Yes, the very statue that was stolen not too long ago.
Oh, tell us a little bit about that, because I don't think most people on the line know about that.
Oh, okay, yes. This was our statue of Sekhmet, and on Good Friday night, when was that, April?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody backed up with a pickup truck, loaded her in, and stole her. We raised money for a reward. I believe it was a $4,000 reward, but we have not heard anything. At first we thought it was a prank, teenagers, but nobody's talking, and if it was teenagers, somebody would talk. There had been peace walkers there. Every Holy Week, the the Peace Walkers walk from Las Vegas out to the test site, and they stay at the temple. And so there were a lot of people there, and there had been some kind of anti-peace people there too.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know. We don't know if that's connected to it in any way or not. We just don't know. But we did raise money for a new statue, a replacement statue, and we are going to put that statue in the temple in August 9th and August 10th. So anyway, so it worked out. But as I say, my first visit there, I looked at the statue of Sekhmet, and I thought, my gosh, it looks so familiar. And I went back. When I went back, I talked to the woman who had said, come by and see me. That was Patricia Perlman, the first temple priestess.
Ah.
And she gave me chocolate and tea. And I said, oh, yes, I have found my place. This is where I want to be. So I worked with Patricia in the women's and men's prison. We worked with groups there, and she ordained me for that work. Later, when Anne came to be the temple priestess, Patricia had become ill and retired. When Anne became the temple priestess, Anne gathered a group of women around and ordained us to be priestesses also. So that's sort of how I came to be a priestess. I develop rituals, I lead rituals, I counsel people, I teach classes, do all those numerous things. I do scrape the candle wax off the floor. In the Sekhmet temple, it's open to the sky, and the birds kind of like to sit on top of it. And so I've often had to scoop the bird leavings off the floor, which earned me the title once of the bird poop priestess.
Ooh.
Which is an honorable title.
Honorable place, yes.
It is an honorable title.
Having watched a show about plague and birds last night, though, I don't want particularly...
I saw your Facebook post.
Like, don't watch that before you go to bed. I'm going to record it from. It's very good. I'm going to record it and watch it in the afternoon. Of course, when I have nothing to do. Yeah, like that's going to happen.
Yeah, it reminds me of the time I was actually pregnant and I decided I was going to watch Night of the Living Dead at home by myself. Not a good idea.
Oh, no, not at all. So Vicki is having some trouble getting in, and I've been trying to get her in here, so I wanted to let everybody know why I'm talking to Candace, but I'm sort of doing some technical stuff here as well. It's a wonderful world. At first we softened enough to... So you got started with the Sekhmet temple, and now you served for quite some time there. And I know you've just moved, and I don't know where Mesquite is, but it's somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere.
Mesquite is about 80 miles northeast of Las Vegas, right on the Nevada-Utah border. And so, yes, the temple is a bit further away, but I'm there in spirit.
Yeah. And you said you've retired.
I retired from the College of Southern Nevada. I was there full-time faculty for over 32 years, and I taught U.S. history, Nevada history, women's studies. I developed and offered the first women's history course in Nevada in the 20th century.
Wow.
I say that because there was a woman at the University of Nevada, Reno, that offered a women's history course in the 19th century. It was called Woman in History. But in the 1970s, I developed Introduction to the History of Women in the U.S. So, and then later we developed a women's studies program. And I've also taught, when I got seniority, I could teach some of the things that, you know, maybe people raise their eyebrows over. I taught my History of Witchcraft course, which does include Salem, and includes the witch craze, and it includes modern paganism too. I teach goddess traditions. I teach modern pagan thought, an introduction to modern Western paganism. And I've also taught a class called Fames, Vampires in Fact, Fiction, and Film.
Whoa!
That's a fun class.
Sounds like with all the vampire craziness going around out there, that might be a good one for you to have a new book out of.
Hey, yeah, well, of course, Margot Adler just wrote a book on vampires.
Yeah, but you know, everybody has a different point of view on them.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I'm not fond of vampires. I've known a few. Primarily energy vampires, but I'm not real fond of them. So I've kind of avoided this whole mythos that, you know, the idea that, well, the idea anybody would be happy in Forks, Washington is beyond me anyway. So
well, I kind of focus on what I call the classical vampire, Bram Stoker's Dracula, and such. But I have shown some of the sparkly vampires, the Twilight film. My students usually say, please, please don't make me watch that.
Yeah, I'm not fond of them. They tend to keep me awake at night.
Yes, they can do that.
And I don't want. I'm typing as I go here. I'm still trying to get Vicki on.
Is she going through a Gmail account? Because it doesn't seem to work unless you go through Gmail.
That's what I told her, and I just sent her a new confirmation. So I'm hoping that we can get her on here. I would hate to not have her on here after she's given up the time and agreed to be here. And you know, she's such a sweetheart, and you're here.
She came out to the temple some years ago and did a workshop.
That's what she's using. I think she's getting it tells me I'm waiting for organizer and doesn't allow me in. Okay, back out and start over. Yeah. So, what is where I was going a few moments ago? Excuse me, folks, for being a little distracted. I'm not the best interviewer this evening. What is it you're looking to do now? I mean, you're retired from your teaching. You're sort of moved away from the temple, and you've got a brand new house. I've been watching it on Facebook.
Well, I kind of two directions I'm going. I'm working with Cherry Hill Seminary. I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with that. We are a pagan seminary. And it's all online education, and I'm the dean of students there.
Oh.
So I urge you to take a look for us, Cherry Hill Seminary, just one hill. And the other thing that I've been looking at for actually a couple of years now is writing a book on goddess spirituality. I do not seem to be aware of a book that somebody who is new to this path could pick up and could kind of be a guidebook through it, that could incorporate history and rituals and ethics and just kind of an all-round sort of, I guess I use the word guidebook. I have a table of contents. I've sent that off to Anne. Anne is very excited, and she scolds me every time I take on some other obligation, and she says, you don't need to do that, you need to sit down and write your book.
Well, you know, that's something that I've told many people. It is, in fact, one of my primary messages that I teach people is that if you don't write it, nobody can. So I'm going to see if I can do something here. Not sure it's going to work. No, she can't do that. I know I have her phone number. Let me see if I can get that and get her in, at least get her on by phone. I apologize, people. This is the first time with this new technology, so it is a little catchy. and we are getting there.
Well, I want to thank everybody who is with us tonight. I can't see you. I'm assuming you can see me.
They can see you, and
Okay.
they can actually talk to you. They can send you questions if they
I'm
want.
I'm looking over on the side at the
Yeah. Yeah. So Yolanda, I'm trying to get her right now. So you can see the chat. And hi, Vicki.
Oh, by the way, Catherine is telling you to look with the Egypt books. Must be Catherine Ravenwood.
Yes, yes. She keeps me on track. By the way, she loves to come and put books into order. So, Vicki, hang on a minute. I'm going to change you and put you on speaker. Okay, I've had to do this a couple of times before. Vicki is joining us by phone, and we aren't going to have her on the video. So, Vicki, I apologize. I don't know what went wrong, but
Mercury retrograde is having its way with us.
It seems to be that way. Candace has been talking about her program and how she's the Dean of Students for Cherry Hill Seminary, and some of the stuff that she's been doing. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what you've been doing lately.
Well, I've been teaching in a master's program at Sophia University, which used to be ITP, Institute for Transpersonal Psychology. And I actually have taught a priestess course there several times, and earlier at New College in San Francisco. So I thought it was perfect, and I can't believe I couldn't get on tonight. But hello, I'm happy to.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, I think one of the things we may have to do is we may have to run a little practice. Mary Moonbow, who's going to be on Wednesday night, was smart enough to come on tonight, so she now knows how to come on Wednesday night. So,
well, I still have my little sign here that says I'm waiting for the organizer, and it's going around and around.
Yeah. Hit Command R on your computer and see if it reloads. But I particularly wanted to have you on this first show because in many ways you were part of my original stepping into myself as a priestess. You with your MotherPeace Tarot deck and the book that accompanied it.
That's wonderful.
Prior to that, I had been walking the Native American road, and I had been doing a lot of Wiccan witch stuff, but I hadn't looked at the idea around the goddess and the pantheism of the goddess until I got the tarot deck, which I got. We're not going to talk when I've got it. Just put it this way: I've gone through several of them.
That's wonderful. I'm so pleased. Well, I've always joked with my students that we're priestesses in a time, in an epoch, when there are no jobs for priestesses, no job descriptions, let's put it that way. So we have to create ourselves in some way that fits into the culture, even though we're actually priestessing.
Yeah, that's true. I had a conversation with a young woman today. She wanted to know what a priestess was, and she has no. I said a priestess is one who shows up and does the work.
Right on. Actually, in my syllabus, I put descriptions from the dictionary. A priestess is a woman authorized to perform the sacred rites of a religion, or a woman regarded as a leader, as of a movement. Isn't that wonderful?
That is lovely.
Authorizes all of us, I think, to be priestesses. Also, I remember learning at some point that the archaic word for nun is priestess.
Really?
Yeah. So the nuns are a kind of a remnant, you know, earlier times.
Yeah. Well, I know that the nuns had a great deal of power at one time. I mean, the nunneries, the great, I mean, they held a lot of wealth, they had a lot of power, and a lot of control back in the 11th, 12th, 13th century.
Yeah, before the burning times.
So, anyway, what I'd like you to talk a little bit about is where your thoughts are going now as to, we're here and we're in this time and we're looking at being priestesses, and as you say, there is no job for us, but many of us feel we've been called, that there's almost, it's like we don't have I won't say we don't have a choice, but it's a vocation that, as opposed to something that we do because we want to. It's like there's a part of us that draws us forward, and I mean, how many times do you have to go to Egypt or buy a tarot deck or what have you? But we do feel that that's what was part of it, and part of it is just showing up. So what do you believe is our calling at this point as a priestess?
Well, it's, I think, getting a bit harder. So I have a lot of sympathy for anybody trying to follow this path these days, because, everybody's working pretty hard to just pay the rent and keep up with the food prices and so on. But I totally agree that we are called and we have to respond, and there are so many of us. In the late 80s and the early 90s, I ran a school in Berkeley for, it was really a school of female shamanism, but as you probably know from my Double Goddess book, I meet priestesses with shamans, and I really feel that women have always facilitated the sacred rites and have always, even in an underground way, kept the goddess religion going in some way. And now we have to, of course, continue and respond to the call. It's been a good run, the women's spirituality programs at CIIS and Sophia. It's been a real pleasure to be able to work with women to actually develop their priestess qualities in a master's program, where they get a master's degree and they actually can go out and run groups, and they're authorized in a certain cultural way. But I think there are so many more women doing priestessing all over the country, all over the world, that we have to just show up where we can and respond to whoever comes for the service. I mean, long ago, decades ago, I got a Universal Life Ministry card, got initiated into that, so that I could do weddings and funerals and other kinds of life passage rituals and so on. So that's something that women can be thinking about. At least that works in California. I'm not quite sure what the legal ramifications are in other parts of the country, but that has really served me. I've been able to do a lot of public rituals in that way. And then the other thing I keep doing is to continue to hold public healing rituals, getting really good drummers together and calling in the community and inviting people who are sick with really serious illnesses to come and lie down and receive the healing in a group way, from a room full of women. Usually a few men come, but it's basically a women's rite, and it's very effective and really powerful, and I continue to do those rituals. I'm sure other women are doing rituals like that all over the country.
Well, I believe women are, and I think a lot of them feel like they're a voice crying in the wilderness.
Well, I feel kind of like that right now.
Yeah, I've talked to so many since I made the first announcement that I was going to put this event on, where I was going to have all these different priestesses speaking. And I've heard from people who've gone, you know, in fact, a couple of them have said, I thought I was the only one.
Wow, wonderful.
You know,
this is a wake-up. It's sort of like the matriarchal studies movement or something, you know. There's a way that we need to know there are others out there responding to the same invitation and, you know, facilitating some of the same kinds of rituals and magic. Got to know that.
And I think when you realize you don't have to invent it all yourself.
Yeah.
You know, there is material out there that you can draw on. There are teachers out there you can study with. And with the new systems that we have available, you know, there is no reason for someone to not be able to find someone they can study with, even if they're, as one woman who got in touch with me, is in the middle of 25,000 acres in Australia.
Wow, that's remote.
Yeah, she says that my nearest neighbors are 5 miles away.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And she says, I feel like I'm being called to being a priestess. I feel like I'm being called to do something that is, you know, to join the animals and the people together. And I'm out here. How do I make contact with anyone else and let them know what I'm thinking
Wow.
about?
Oh, you know, I know in a personal way a woman in Australia who is actually teaching a priestess training. Her name is Anique Radiant Heart, and she's not in Sydney anymore. She's in a rural area, but really, I bet this woman could Google, and at least that would be somebody in her own country.
Well, I think she's going to be listening to us on the replays, so we do have a replay of this. It's going to be available for 24 hours after for free. Anyone who is interested in listening, it'll be there. After that, it'll be going into the membership site, and one of the things we're going to be doing with the membership site is offering the opportunity for all of these wonderful priestesses who are appearing on this show to offer classes or events where, as a member, you get to come at a slight discount. And so, truly, what my goal is to create a group that reaches out through the internet but brings us together as individuals, so that, because I have spent a lot of time in the wilderness myself, and I know how lonely it is.
It's very isolated. That's true. Yeah.
I almost got kicked out of school whenever I was in Oklahoma. I was 14, and I had gone to another new school, which was my 12th. And when they asked me to put down what was my religion, and I put down my religion was witchcraft. I was quickly told either I changed that or I was not going to go to that school.
Wow.
And my mother said, don't, you know, just put down Baptist. That's what she is, after all. But, you know.
I always said the same thing. You know, I was Presbyterian. I mean, it's so funny. We crossed over, and it's not always easy to describe what caused that to happen. You know, what was the invitation that we felt so strongly that we would cross over like that? But I absolutely feel it in my own life, and all the students who come to me feel the same. So, you know, it's a phenomenon that is very much underrated in our culture and a little bit below the zone of consciousness, I think. There's a bit of a way that we're in an underground here or a substratum, you know.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with that in this country for the last decade, is that I've been doing tutorials here in Santa Cruz. One of my students asked me one time if she could come and study with me privately, and it worked out so well that I've been doing that now for almost 15 years, actually, and it's great. You know, it's not, I prefer having 100 women in a room, you know. That would be my preference, that we really raise our voices together and that we blend our energy together in a powerful group way. But when that's not possible, I'm very responsive to the idea of one-on-one, and I've been doing that with a lot of enthusiasm here in Santa Cruz, where I live. And then I go to Europe, to Italy in particular, and I have large groups of women who are very active and devoted and really want to priestess. And they learn to do that, you know, through the practices that I teach and through the group work that they do even when I'm not there. So it's just a funny time in America, I think.
One of the exciting things that I've been involved with just recently in the past year or so here in Las Vegas is that we have opened a Center for Goddess Studies. It's called the Sophia Center for Goddess Study. Yes, we had our grand opening just last Friday. We've been open for several months, but our grand opening, which was a tremendous ritual and kind of reception, we had such a great turnout for it. And Reverend Ava from the Goddess Temple of Orange County came, and also Candace Ross from the Sekhmet Temple came as well to bestow their blessings. So I think, you know, I hope things are changing. I hope we're getting a more public face.
It seems like it has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that all of us want something more. I mean, the very fact that this book, which, you know, is quite a hefty tome, has managed to get out there, and that we are sitting here tonight discussing this with some 200 people who are signed up on the call, whether they're listening to us right now or will listen to us later. But it's enough people that it shows that there's an interest, that there's a desire to not only know more about it, but to come together. And
well, you know, the photographs on your website of the webinar, and all of us priestesses, you know, gathered together in that way, that was powerful.
Yeah.
That was.
All of us.
Yeah.
And then multiply that by, you know, it's exponential. Multiply it by hundreds. I'm sure that's what's happening, actually. But there's an isolation that's kind of dangerous, and we do need to overcome it. So good for you, Gloria, because it's happening.
Well, I think that we have to support it, and we have to support each other. And one of the things that, you know, I've been involved, I was with the Women of Wisdom Foundation in Seattle for 10 years and ended as the board president of that organization. And what we found was that there were a few groups of people who believed that their way was the only way. I mean, it was like there was fundamentalist witches, and there were fundamentalist pagans, and, you know, it's like our way is the only way. And I don't believe that, so I have trouble with that. I mean, my goal is that we all work together, because if we don't all work together, we're all going to fall apart.
Yeah, we're all going to be jobless, that's for sure.
Yeah. Faye Lind would like to know what you and Candace think about priestessing within Wicca. That's an interesting comment.
And I just saw that, and I was just typing a little response. Somebody was also saying something about, is she speaking now? And I said, yes, this is Vicki, but actually this is Candace.
Well, I'm not Wiccan. You know, it's a funny thing. I don't even know why I'm not, but I believe they are different paths. There are several different paths, certainly, to the goddess work. And when Karen Vogel and I were making the MotherPeace in the late 1970s, we, awakening to our status as witches and priestesses and shaman women, we assumed that Wicca would be our path, and we asked a Wiccan high priestess to teach us, and she said, she was also a psychic, and she said, well, I'll teach anyone who asks because it's my religion, but I don't think it's your religion. And she was wrong, and we went ahead with her courses and her lessons, and at a certain point, it became clear that actually that's not what we were doing. And I don't even know exactly what the difference is, but I feel a very strong affinity with Starhawk and the shamanistic, energies and so on of the Wiccan tradition, feel very positive about it, and yet I'm not Wiccan. So I can't really answer that question.
Well, for me, one of the things is I always called myself a witch. I've called myself a witch since I was 12 years old, and other people started calling me that. And but whenever I encountered Wicca, I was in my 20s. And what I quickly found out is they had too many rules. They had too many limitations, too many rules. I had to do things a certain way, the way that they said I had to do them. And I've never been very good at that.
I began the little metaphysical shop that I took classes at was I would say, Alexandrian Wiccan shop. And I found them, like you were saying, Gloria, I found them to be very structured. And I was looking for something that was not quite so structured.
Yes, I think that's true. That's right. There's more of a structure. I believe that's right. And certainly I'm a little more spontaneous or free-flowing, but not entirely. I mean, I feel that a ritual really has to be held by whoever is directing it. And it's totally crazy. It's not. It must be held in order for safety, and so that it doesn't go on for 4 hours when when people are tired and so on. So I don't know.
Well,
yeah, it's true. I don't like a lot of rules.
Yeah, I agree with you on that as far as the ritual is concerned, and I think that's actually a topic that we can expand on for hours, frankly.
Yeah.
But, I have been in unsafe rituals. I have been in rituals where, particularly in rock and roll gatherings and things like that, where it just felt like everybody was doing whatever they want, flinging energy wherever they wanted to fling it, and that it just wasn't safe to be there. And Raven and I have both been to, the Oregon Country Fair, and you said, there's something there that we don't necessarily feel that it's that safe because there is no container.
Yeah, that can be a problem.
And I think that one of the things that for our listeners is to realize that, we have a very strong container that we're holding this event tonight in. I mean, it may be that, it's difficult to get, thank you, Mercury, Thoth, please, get on the case. I don't
think you guys made a big enough altar to Mercury.
Oh, you ought to see my altar, Mercury. Anyway, but I think that we've got to hold the space that our lives are contained within, and our rituals are contained within, and from that space we can reach out to others and change. I mean, even the example of the book, Stepping Into Ourselves, is a book that talks about how to establish rules and order within a unruled and unordered space.
Yes, within a non-hierarchical space.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So I think.
And the other part of that, of course, is that in order to priestess public rituals where lots of people come and maybe they are not initiated, it's very important that that person who takes on that task is extremely well anchored and can bring the big energy through her body and through her energy field and ground it like a lightning rod. And that ability takes years to develop. So some of what we all experience in different rituals is probably, if there's a feeling of ungroundedness or something, it's probably just because somebody's new, or it hasn't been developed thoroughly. Also in shamanism, that's true. You have to work for many years to learn how to house the energies in your physical vehicle, and without hurting yourself and without hurting anybody else. And that's a kind of invisible work that has to take place. It's part of any apprenticeship, and because we are so spontaneous and free flowing a lot of the time, I think we're not always at that level. That does take work and focus and practice.
I agree, and I also think, though, I was sitting there looking at the different names of people who are in this list of women, and I'm reading their autobiographies, going through it, and it's been 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah,
and I was just kind of adding up, and I realized we have over 1,000 years of priestessing represented in this group.
That's wonderful.
One of the things that I've been involved in is Fire Tribe. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Fire Tribe or Mystery Tribe. We've got a group here, Vegas Vortex, that is sponsored by Abby Spinner McBride and Jeff McBride, and they do fire circles. They're all-night fire circles. And in May, they do a 3-night fire circle. And there is a container to hold the energy, but you can imagine this thing goes on from about 11 until sunrise, so it's a 5 or 6 hour thing. And you can really tell when the energy starts to lag. And then I watch Abby watching us, and she will step in and do something or start a chant, or the drummers will change their beat to pull that energy back, or we'll all go into a little mellow time, or something for a while and then come back. But it's both a skill and a talent, I think, to be able to be sensitive to the energy of a group, and then also to know what to do about it. Of course, as a teacher, I've always, and a history teacher, I have become adept at reading the body language of the students, and I know when the fidgeting starts, it's time for me to stop talking.
Well, it makes me think that in the ancient times and in present-day indigenous cultures, the whole community is hip to how ritual is done and to what is needed. So in a way, it can be very low-key, spontaneous. I've been in Huichol rituals that were very powerful, but also they took breaks, and there would be this time period where it was very, everybody just took a break, and there was a lot of chatting, and it was friendly and informal, and then we would go back into the ritual. But that's partly because the whole community knows what's happening. Those rituals happen year after year after year. And for many of us, priestessing in Western cultures in the 20th and 21st centuries, people don't know what's expected and don't know really about energy. And it's a lot of work to hold a ritual together. It takes a lot of physical energy from whoever is performing that function. And I think that's different than it is for more earth-based cultures.
Well, I know that whenever I first began studying outside of books and what my grandmother taught me, that my first teacher was a Navajo woman who was a weaver. And I went to the reservation, and we went to a couple of different sings, they're called, that were where non-native people were allowed to come. And they were 2- and 3-day long events.
Uh-huh.
And as you said, sometimes the singer was singing, and sometimes he was scrubbing people's hair, and sometimes people were just sitting around talking or sleeping in the back of a pickup truck. And you know, it was, but the other thing is that, you know, you made the comment about earlier about the amount of time. In the Navajo tradition, a Navajo is not considered a singer or a crystal healer until they've put in almost 28 years of study.
Wow. I've always thought 10 years was a good amount of time, but that's extraordinary.
Well, they have, you know, they have basically what is effectively an encyclopedia that they have to memorize word for word. With the sings, the beauty way, the enemy way, that have to be completely, they have to be said exactly the right way. And if they're not, they're broken. So to memorize that, and of course, we in our culture are losing our ability to remember things because we have paper and iPhones and other devices that can maintain our memory.
Computers.
Till the grid goes down.
Until the grid goes down, or till we can't find that file or whatever. But it is in our memories that I believe we have the calling to be the priestesses. It is.
Yes, I do too. I think it awakens, and we remember, and we begin to do the work, and just that is what I consider an apprenticeship. I mean, you're getting guidance. Maybe it's from the invisible realm and not necessarily from a physical teacher, or maybe it is from a physical teacher, but it definitely takes years to get your energy body to the point where it can handle the high vibrational energy without breaking, without hurting.
Right. And I think that one of the things that I would like to focus on the next 5 weeks of events that I'm going to be hosting is, how do you do that? You know, how do you maintain that energy without it breaking you or without it breaking the energy and causing damage in the world?
Yeah. Well, certainly in a simple way, I think it is incremental. I think if you start small and run circles in some way, you learn a lot, and your body learns how to handle the energy. And then if you have a larger group, you know, you're challenged. I always felt challenged at each incremental growth spurt, you know, at each point that there was a larger group. But now I feel, I mean, I have felt for a long time, decades now, that I could handle however many people show up, hundreds, thousands, it doesn't matter. But it does take a toll. And there is a kind of process of practice where you train your body to handle it. And it's not for everybody.
I agree. Candace, what do you think?
Actually, I was in the middle of typing a response. They're talking on the side about tenders. People who will watch the vibe of people in the circle, and somebody said that's a priestess role, and I said it is definitely a priestess.
We just lost your sound. There you go.
Yeah, I'm having trouble
with
Candace right now.
No, yeah, she went in and out. She's back now.
Oh, good.
Can you hear me? I don't.
It's a little muffled.
That's interesting, because nothing changed with that.
Hello, Mercury.
Let's be sure all of the plugs are still in. Yes, they're still in.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'll ask you to repeat the question.
Well, the question was, about holding energy and holding energy for a large group. I mean, you've obviously done that. And any advice you could give to our audience, because as I said, that's one of the things I really do want to touch on is how do you hold this energy and make it pure and make it honest and not break, not yourself or the energy itself, so that it is held in absolute perfection.
Well, another shameless plug for the anthology. There are several pieces in there about taking care of yourself, and I think that is very basic. If you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of other people. So, and there's a grounding. There's sometimes just being silent, just silent within yourself. That is extremely important. There's pacing yourself as well, and then all of the things that we don't want to hear, like eat a healthy diet and get plenty of sleep and exercise, because you have to be in good health in order to do this kind of work.
Yeah, I agree. So anyway, on that note, I think that in order to honor the time frames, because I know I've got 2 people on here from Switzerland, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning for them, and we have been on for an hour. I want to begin to wrap this up, and I want to thank you, Vicki. I'm sorry we had so much trouble and we didn't get you on the video.
Yeah, and I did my hair and everything.
Whoa. Hopefully we'll be able to have you as I'm going to be having some special guests in the fall, and maybe we can have you do a training for us. And I'll work with you to get you on the video, because I do want to see your beautiful face.
Well, I really appreciate that it worked out. I was afraid I was just going to have to go have my dinner and call it a day. So It's lovely to be with you and with everyone.
Technology will not defeat me is my motto. And my favorite, I don't particularly like the website Yahoo, but I do like what it means. You always have other options. So anyway, but based on that, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for the work you've done, because truthfully, you have done great work over a long period of time. You've got numerous books, and I want to suggest that you've got your website. And your website is?
It's MotherPeace.com.
Okay.
And I share it with Karen, and then I have a Facebook page, and what else? I guess I'd like to encourage everybody who hasn't to read my book, The Double Goddess, because it's really all about priestessing.
Okay, well, that sounds fabulous. I have read it, and I look forward to looking at it again, and also, that is as soon as I can figure out where Catherine Ravenwood hid it. She came over while I had my knee replaced, and she couldn't stand the way my books were organized, so she reorganized them all.
Oh my gosh.
Is she a Virgo by chance?
No, she's a Cancer.
Oh, there's a lot of Virgo in her chart. I can tell it. I can tell it.
Yeah, she's the one you want to invite to help you put those books away, Candace. But
now,
anyway.
if she also color-coded them, then I'd really have real respect there.
So, Vicki, I want to thank you so much, and I've put up your website here, and hopefully some people, we'll put your website up on the membership site, and a list of your books as well, so people can go and buy them.
And hopefully the Priestess to Bride article is something that people are taking away with them.
Yeah, and let's look at the idea of possibly what we can do in the future as to offerings that you might be able to offer through the membership site, where we can provide people with supervision, either one-on-one or in groups over a period of time. Sometimes it's a little hard to get somewhere whenever you're in one place, it's hard to get to Santa Cruz. So let's figure out how we can do that, because I think we all have it as a responsibility to help each other move up the ladder of our intentions.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, but thank you for being here, and I will have your links on the website. And Candace, I want to thank you so much, and again put in a plug for the book. And we've got we do have a discount if you go to the
website. We have a store on the website.
And what is the discount code?
Let's see.
I had it here.
15% off any Goddess Inc. publication. The discount code is Summer 2014. SUMMER 2014.
Okay, so
and for members, should I go ahead with that?
I'll put that in the membership site.
Okay, very good.
So Summer 2014?
Yeah. All lowercase, no spaces.
Okay.
And I've been looking at the comments on the site, and there are some questions that we didn't get to. If anybody would like to pursue things more, you can always send an email to me, Candace at goddess-inc.com.
Okay, that's Candace at goddess-inc.com.
Yes.
And we will have all this in the membership site and also in the program as we're getting this all put together. It's all coming together, but it's I have had to surrender to the fact that it's coming together slowly. Piscina lente.
Yeah. This is like the dress rehearsal.
Well, I think this has been an excellent show, and I want to thank you both for being here, and I want to thank Mary for showing up and letting me know that it actually does work. And then I also want to thank all of our attendees who, Razel is here as well, and she'll be on later. On this next event will be Tina Teagarden, who is a friend of mine and who's a student of Lynn Andrews and Alberto Vialdo, and also an incredible shaman, and she works with horses. She's the only woman I know who has 4 stallions in her backyard, and I don't mean men. And they're quite lovely. They're very, very affectionate. So she's going to be on with Mary Moonbow, and Mary's going to be teaching us about archery and how we can go out into the wilderness a little bit more and explore. And then on Friday we have Ione, the great Ione, who will be with us, as well as Pamela Eakins, and that's for just this first week. So we've got some fabulous women coming, and we hope you'll all show up and be there. And thank you very much for tonight and for being here. And I want to thank our attendees and even our attendees who are listening at a later date, and assure you that we appreciate each and every one of you, because without you, we can't get the message out. And the message is what we're here for. And the message is you are important. And it is important that you carry this lineage forward. And we're getting old and tired, frankly.
Really? Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
All right, on that note, I'm going to call it a night, and I want to thank you all again. And I will see you on Wednesday. And Candace and Vicki, thank you for getting through the trials and tribulations, and let you go and have your dinner.
And thank you so much, Gloria, for doing this, and thank you, Vicki. It was fun to talk with you.
Yes, wonderful. I'll see you soon, Candace.
Okay, see you soon.
All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.